After a 6-year hiatus, director Martin Campbell relaunched the Bond series in 1995 with the explosive debut of Pierce Brosnan as the international secret agent. Following the fall of the Soviet Union and the death of his old partner, 006, James Bond finds himself being stalked by a ghost from his past with plans for world domination. Welcome to Goldeneye.
Good evening, 003. The following is for your ears only and is classified above top secret by Her Majesty's Secret Service. Our contact meant that we can make this work. Probably, Podcast Network intercepted an encrypted audio message regarding Podcasters Assemble. For this season, the Podcast Network is looking to recruit field operatives from around the world to reminisce about the Bond movies in a countdown to the latest film in the franchise, No Time to Die. Your primary objective is to infiltrate Podcasters Assemble by recording and uploading your submissions at probablywork.com, utilizing a two-way communications device with a built-in microphone, the latest from Q-Branch. For a full mission report, go to probablywork.com. We're all counting on you, 003.
Assemble. Podcasters Assemble.
Hello, my name is Ben Thompson. I am from badassoftheweek.com.
Eric Slater here from Epic Fails of History and Too Young for This Trek.
Yo, this is Corey Torgerson from the upcoming podcast, The World is My Burrito.
This is Chris from the Comic Zombie Podcast.
This is Troidal Power.
This is MC.
From the best animated shows ever.
So far.
This is Justin Aki, graphic designer and one half of Significant Arco.
This is Megan Aki, the other half of Significant Arco.
My name is Bill. I'm from Bill's JRPG Adventures.
And today, we are talking about
Goldeneye.
Finally.
Spoiler alert. 1995's Goldeneye is the 17th Bond film and the debut of Pierce Brosnan as 007. It's the first Bond movie to not use any elements of Ian Fleming's works beyond the main characters. The title is actually reference to the Goldeneye estate in Jamaica, where Ian Fleming wrote the Bond novels.
It is the 17th Bond movie, it is the first starring Pierce Brosnan, and it is the first not based off of an original Ian Fleming story, which makes sense because he's been dead for like 30 years at this point, although it is named after his beach house in Jamaica where he wrote all of the James Bond stories.
Operation Goldeneye was also a code name for a real-life contingency plan for a Nazi invasion of Spain during World War II that Fleming worked on while serving in the British intelligence.
Finally, we're here! Pierce Brosnan!
Today I'm talking about Goldeneye.
Finally, we reach the modern era of James Bond.
Ah, yes, we have entered the era of Pierce Brosnan.
For many, this will be their favorite or most well-known Bond movie.
Goldeneye is easily one of my favorite Bond movies.
So we are officially doing Martin Campbell's Goldeneye, the first Bond film with Mr. Pierce Brosnan in the role.
For most of the series, I have been the James Bond newbie, but with Pierce, he's my man. I grew up with him. He is my James Bond.
First, we have a new Bond, Mr. Remington Steele himself, Mr. Thomas Crown, Mr. Dante's Peak. Wait, no, his name was Harry in that movie. But we finally get Pierce Brosnan,
replacing the too soonly departed Timothy Dalton. Not that he's deceased or anything.
As an actor, Pierce Brosnan always plays an effortlessly cool and suave character. And to me, that is what I think of when I think of James Bond.
He was my Bond when I grew up, you know? He was the Bond that was big and new and current.
Pierce Brosnan might not be my favorite Bond, but this entry really captures the best aspects of the franchise as a whole.
Maybe it's the piercing look that he gives, his little boyish smirk, or just the way he delivers like a snarky line with a straight face.
Taking a bit of the suave back from Sean Connery, some of the one-liners from Roger Moore, none of the tortured seriousness of Timothy Dalton. All in all, a great Bond.
All these characteristics kind of embody James Bond.
This is the first one with Judi Dench's M. There's some gadgets.
Bond this time is going up against a shady criminal organization, with a good supporting cast that comes back in subsequent movies, as the same actors too, so that's fun.
Goldeneye is definitely one of my favorite Bond films. I think it's probably one of everyone's favorite Bond films.
And a good return to the series after a 6-year hiatus.
It does a really nice job of kind of blending the traditional elements of a Bond movie with kind of more modern sensibilities and a more modern storytelling sensibility.
Forget even the companion video games. This movie was fast-paced and a monster when it came out in 1995.
This was my first Bond movie.
But what's weird is, I didn't see this movie when it came out. I mean, I was just a wee lad when this movie came out.
As a kid, I used to actually get it mixed up with Mission Impossible, which I think came out around the same time.
And James Bond to me was a thing that existed on television because we watched James Bond marathons at Thanksgiving and at Christmas.
It wasn't until I played the Goldeneye video game that I really fell in love with Bond.
So I actually played Goldeneye the video game before I saw Goldeneye the movie. But that doesn't mean I don't love this movie.
But as a kid, this was one of those movies that I rewatched on VHS like all the time. I had this rotation of the Star Wars trilogy, Jurassic Park, Mortal Kombat, Indiana Jones, Back to the Future, Goldeneye, and the original Star Trek movies.
Now there's one pass you have to give this movie right off the bat. It was the 90s. We were experimenting. Everybody was in an experimental phase when it came to music, and the soundtrack for this is horrible, industrial, grindy garbage, unless you play the video game a lot, in which case you love this soundtrack because it just sounds like the video game.
So I'm just really glad that Pierce is here. Yay, Goldeneye!
Let's start off from the beginning.
So the cold open in this movie, it's a flashback sequence.
The movie opens up 9 years before the main plot,
At the beginning of the movie, we get this really awesome cold open.
with Bond infiltrating the Russian base on a hydroelectric dam.
Bond in this movie is cool right away.
The beginning of this intro is tight.
He's running across that dam and then he just dives off of it in this epic bungee jump.
Bond starts by basically bungee jumping off of a giant dam, and then uses this cool grappling line to quietly pull himself to the base of it.
But the whole sequence, it opens with this shot of a dam, and Bond actually leaps off and does like a bungee jump off the side of this dam, which I want to say is the Hoover Dam, but it's supposed to be in Russia, so I don't know if it's actually a dam or...
It starts off with this amazing 722-foot bungee jump off of a dam.
The movie continues with Bond swan diving off the dam, attached to a bungee cord, then shooting a pinton into the ground, lowering himself.
Where the stuntman does the jump, and at the bottom of the bungee jump, after the cord starts to be pulled, he reaches into his vest, pulls out a gun, and aims it just before he drops behind a rock. And it's such a cool looking stunt.
But at no point in time does this person even slightly look like Pierce Brosnan. The hair definitely looks like Timothy Dalton when he's just running atop the dam. None of that looks like Brosnan. But I do like that everything is kind of kept in shadow, so it's like, oh, who's the new Bond?
There really is no graceful way to get off a bungee.
Then he uses a grappling hook, then he uses a laser. We've got cool action like Timothy Dalton had combined with the gadgets of Roger Moore, all smushed into one in only the opening 30 seconds of this movie. It tells you what it's gonna be, and what it's gonna be is great.
First time we see Pierce Brosnan, he is punching a Russian in the face while he's taking a dump.
Then, of course, you gotta have jokes, right? It's not James Bond without jokes, and literally, Pierce Brosnan's first line as James Bond is a bathroom joke.
By the way, the game is pretty accurate to this point, as Bond finds himself in the bathroom.
Because he sneaks into a bathroom.
Then sneaks in through the air ducts into the bathroom.
But I'm pretty sure I had more than 4 dudes in that bathroom anyway.
And he's in the stall with a guard, and the guard looks at him "Buh?" And he goes, forgot to knock, and then knocks him the hell out. Hell yeah, James Bond.
Right off the bat, we're 5 seconds into this movie. We've got cool gadgets, we've got an amazing stunt, a good joke, a badass intro, the gun barrel scene, some kind of epic hero shot of James Bond. He looks the part, he acts the part, he's great, and I love it already.
But the whole opening of this movie is clever for a couple of reasons. First of all, it shows Bond being a total badass. He's like a special ops agent, but the way he moves, his tactics and everything, he looks like a professional.
Regardless, Bond sneaks through the base, catching it with 006, Alec Trevelyan.
Alec Trevelyan. Alec Trevelyan? I can never say his last name. 006. Here he is, Alec. Good friend of James Bond. They're quipping at each other. We see that the quips are like a 00 thing.
And he meets up with 006, and they start planning some charges in a Russian chemical plant, pre-fall of the Soviet Union.
They're like making jokes back and forth.
Bond links up with 006.
Lord knows how he got there. In a Connery movie, this whole build-up would have taken like 20 minutes, and we're at like minute 3 here.
And I love the idea of the other 00 agents running around doing other badass things. We've seen a couple of them in The Living Daylights, but they were not impressive. And so to see Bond and 006 out here, like, kicking ass and, like, you know, infiltrating this Russian base is really cool.
At one point, Bond tells him, or Alex says it's closing time, and Bond responds, "Buy me a pint."
Now, I have seen this movie a few times, but every time Sean Bean appears, I think, for the love of God, maybe this time he'll be Bond. He's not.
It's this mission in Russia with 006. Alex Trevelyan, played by Sean Bean.
Sean Bean's Alec Trevelyan, who was 006.
They sneak in, set off the alarm, and there's a badass shootout. And I love the way that they're working together, where like both 006 and 007 have that James Bond feel to them. Sean Bean is great in this role. Like, I like that you feel like these guys have known each other forever. They're kind of having fun. They're joking around. They're quipping. They're fighting these guys. But what they're doing is like also pretty hardcore.
And then another time, "Shut the door, Alec. There's a draft." And Alec doesn't respond, and that's when Bond realizes, oh no, he's been captured by the evil Russian general.
Trevelyan apparently gets captured, and with a gun to his head tells James to finish the job.
As always, there are some stellar single shots in this film when Colonel Oramov is holding a gun to 006's head. That is just so cool. They do like the close-up of Oramov, the close-up of 006, Bond stepping out, and then it just kind of opens up, and there's just this powerful scene right there.
James resets the timer on the bombs for a few minutes earlier. Trevelyan gets shot, apparently point blank in the head.
And the better Bond just got shot.
But they are caught, and Alex is shot in the face.
And of course, in one of the first scenes with him, Sean Bean is killed.
So Sean Bean dies 7 minutes into this movie. I think that's a new record.
Or at least that's what we're led to think.
And then James comes up with like the most batshit crazy escape. It's super awesome.
And here we get a great moment, because this room's full of Russian soldiers. How's Bond going to get out of this?
And then when Bond tries to leave, the soldiers have to hold their fire, or they might blow up some nerve gas. Except one guy. He screws up, and he gets shot in the face as well.
Well, all the tanks in here are gas tanks, and there's a rack on wheels full of gas tanks. And so Bond just walks very slowly across the room behind this rack of gas tanks.
When Oramov is like, don't shoot the gas tanks, Bond is like, okay, I'm going to use the gas tanks as cover. That's great. And I love this scene. It's so funny with Oramov looking at him like he's a moron, all the Russians just training their guns on him as he moves, and the only sound is like the one squeaky wheel on this thing as Bond is like dragging this cart of explosives across the room.
And it's the slowest escape scene ever that leads into the fastest escape scene ever.
Past this point, the movie starts to follow hero rules, because Bond ends up with like 100 rounds in his gun.
And, you know, there's lots of shooting and explosions and
culminates with Bond using a motorcycle to catch up to a tiny plane taking off.
There's a plane taking off from this runway, and he's getting chased by the bad guy, so he chases, he's chasing the plane down.
My favorite Bond moment is actually after the cold opening, the explosion's about to go off.
He gets in, beats the crap out of this poor pilot, and tries to throw him out, but the pilot like drags him with him.
Bond runs to a plane, knocks out the driver, fights with him a little bit. They both fall out of the airplane, so Bond has to steal a motorcycle, chase the airplane to the end of the runway.
Thankfully, their wreck also wrecks a motorcycle, so James steals the motorcycle, chases the plane down that's now fallen off the mountain edge runway.
He got into the plane, he's pulled the pilot out of the plane, he fell out of the plane with the pilot, he's picked up a motorbike, and he starts chasing down the plane that's still running down along this runway. There's a cliff, the plane goes over the cliff, he follows it, jumps off the bike, free falls,
then jump the motorcycle off the cliff,
jumps off the motorcycle in midair, and then like glides to the plane,
gets into the plane,
skydive down to the plane, board it mid-flight,
and flies off in the plane.
Climbs in the open door, and then pulls the plane out of an impossible nosedive and flies to relative safety.
Pull it out of the dive just in time before it hits a mountain and explodes.
Okay, so this like leap off the cliffside, air dive into the plane is absurd, but this is like a really solid start to this movie.
A lot of this was a real practical stunt. There was a dude who like ramped a motorcycle off a cliff and then skydived towards an airplane, and I think it's great. We're 10 minutes into this movie. Bond is flying an airplane over a huge exploding base, and this is like some of the best Bond stuff that we've seen probably ever.
Where James Bond chases down an airplane, gets knocked out of the airplane, steals a motorcycle, rides it off the end of the runway,
Eventually boarding, throwing out the pilot, and pulling up from almost crashing into the ground at the last minute.
skydives into the airplane, gets into it, takes control, and takes off into the title credits.
That was pretty epic.
Bond hijacks a plane and then barely manages to pull the nose up in time and clear a mountain.
Pretty freaking awesome. It's one of my favorite cold opens in a Bond movie.
It's just incredible and nuts all at the same time.
It's a great balance between super lame and really impressive.
And it's a really good opener.
Hell yeah, James Bond.
So right away, this feels like a solid reboot of the series. I mean, he's obviously a lot younger, but also this is, I think, one of the first times where the cold open actually has a lot to do with the main plot. And it kind of feels like a separate mission initially until later in the movie when it's revealed that, spoilers, 006 is still alive.
This leads into the opening credits.
This, my friends, is for you. Or the Edge.
The first few notes of the intro, did anyone else get the feeling that this was Hit Me Baby One More Time? And after a quick internet search, that song actually came out 3 years after this movie.
Give it to me, Tina.
The credits, they are great, and they are pretty creepy.
See reflections on the water, more than darkness in the depths. See him surface and never a shadow. On the wind I feel his breath.
So you got the title sequence with Tina Turner.
Right, the song is Goldeneye, the intro, Goldeneye by Tina Turner.
She does an amazing job.
U2 wrote this song after Bono stayed at the Goldeneye house that Ian Fleming owned.
And I love the visuals that go with the song.
Then, of course, we get our obligatory nonsense naked girls writhing around for no reason while some crappy song plays for approximately 17 hours.
It's kind of a typical Bond opening, but they've got this really cool, like, Soviet symbolism.
With CGI and live-action naked girls destroying monuments of communism, but the song is meh.
Kind of echoes what's going on both in the movie later on, but also what's going on in the real world, the fall of the Berlin Wall and, you know, the collapse of the Soviet Union.
The intro sequence is just like guns, naked chicks, and Soviet iconography. I was 15 when this movie came out, and it was just basically like everything that I was all about at the time, so, and I guess still am. So, yeah, I'm in. I love this.
I don't think Tina Turner should have ever done this song. It's almost a holdover from when they were doing like the adult movies in the 80s. I did hear that Ace of Base was originally one of the people that were trying to do one of the songs.
It was originally supposed to be performed by Ace of Base, which I think might have been a pretty different outcome.
I mean, that would have been fun. That would have been very 90s.
I know that I'm not always like in on the songs, but I am all in on this song.
This is the first intro in a long time that I can truly say that I like. Even the Dalton ones, like, I love Aha and Duran Duran, but I love them. I don't necessarily love them as Bond film intros, but Tina Turner, like, this is sick.
You'll never know how I watched you from the shadows as a child. You'll never know how it feels to get so close and be denied.
I've always wondered, though, the lyrics in the Tina Turner song, what are they talking about? What is this song about? Is it about Bond? Is it about 006? Is it about the satellite? Is it supposed to be Natalia? It's a little confusing.
Now I've got you in my sight.
I'm gonna go with satellite.
With a golden eye. Golden night. With a golden night. Goldeneye. Boom.
The Goldeneye sets the tone for what we are about to experience.
It's got that kind of weird, subdued, jazzy, epic sound that I love in a Bond theme.
It sounds like Bond stuff. It sounds like spy stuff. It sounds like, I mean, I'm all in on this.
This is what all of them should be.
And we're into the movie.
We cut to Monaco, and there's the Aston Martin DB5 from the 60s, like the old school stuff flying down this mountain road.
So we're a few years later, and it opens with one of the most puzzling, confusing, really weird sequences in this movie. Really in a lot of Bond movies. I won't say any Bond movie because we all know that's a bold-faced lie.
I don't love the scene right after the song because I love the scene because it's James Bond's driving with this woman in the car who's like freaked out by his driving.
But Bond is driving in a car with this woman in a really nice Aston Martin.
Cut to James Bond tooling around in Monte Carlo.
Down this windy road that appears to be in the Swiss Alps or France or something like that. And out of nowhere, this really, really hot girl drives up in another car and she's racing him, and the girl in his car is like, oh, please don't do this. And
getting evaluated by MI6 shrink.
He's like, whatever, shut up.
But he ends up in a road race with Zeno on the top.
Okay, so stunt note number 2, we get real drifting in this movie. There's a lot of implied drifting in a lot of the older movies, even the Sean Connery ones, but this is legit.
And then another woman shows up like looking like a dominatrix in a red convertible sports car and starts like having automotive foreplay with James Bond, and that's very fun. And there's a great line where the girl in Bond's car is like, I enjoy a spirited ride as much as the next girl, and then she looks over and says, who the hell is that? And Bond goes, the next girl, which is very good.
My favorite vehicle is definitely going to be Famke's car. The Ferrari F355 GTS.
Bond is being evaluated by some woman from MI6 who has been sent to, just check on his prowess. And he sees Jean Grey in a Ferrari and decides, yeah, I'm just going to race her down the mountain.
She's driving a Ferrari, which, of course, it's red.
It's this really long, odd sequence. And it's not helped by one of the most puzzling, head-scratchingly weird music choices I've ever heard.
Even if the music was techno terrible.
For anybody who was brave enough to join us for our commentary track on Never Say Never Again, you know that like one of the things we talked about was none of the music cues fit anything that was happening in the movie.
Oh, the music that was playing during the chase scene was terrible.
It was like the guy who, the sound director, whoever, music director, was watching a totally different film. And this reminded me of that. Like,
it was so bad.
But then it turns out that this woman is a psychologist who was assigned to James to evaluate him, and he totally seduces her and has sex with her in his car in order to get out of the evaluation. And that sucks. That sucks, Pierce Brosnan. That sucks.
There's this huge race, great car chase, a lot of like fun things in between when the bicyclists are coming up and they have to maneuver around the bicyclists, and then the bicyclists all fall over anyway. I love that.
There's an important setup in the scene where they're driving down the mountainside, because there's a bunch of bicyclists riding up the hill, and then the two cars come around the corner of the bicycles, are like, oh no, and almost get hit, but they all stop, and then they look at the cars go by, and one bicyclist falls down, and then he bumps into all the others, and it's like a row of dominoes.
How did those cyclists fall over? They were at a dead stop.
It's important. That'll come back later.
Because we don't get to see a BMW perform in the movie, I really appreciate the Aston Martin DB5 from the opening chase.
So I was talking to Eric about why that scene is in the movie, since it feels very unnecessary. It feels very added on because the very next scene introduces the same character again. And I was thinking about it, and it's we were wondering if maybe the scene was requested by like the makers of Aston Martin, like the car. I know that's one of the deals they get is like a sponsorship. So the film brings in a lot of money by featuring that car. They let them use the car and they pay them to use it. So we were wondering if maybe they had shot the movie already or most of the movie, and they said, we really need you to feature this car. The only chase scene you have is super awesome, but it's a tank, which we'll get to, and not the Aston Martin that we gave you. So maybe they just felt the need to add this in, and maybe Second Unit did it or something, and like Second Unit edited it. I don't know, but it's very strange.
Bond eventually stops the race at the request of the Shrink, but He then opens a compartment in the car and shows her a bottle of his chilled Bollinger.
Bond wins the race. Xenia Onatopp spins out, and then when the evaluator is like, pull over this car right now, he pulls it over, pops open the center console, there's champagne in there, toasts her, makes out with her.
And she's really into him. So this is like basically the first time this Bond is a very non-casual sexual assault movie.
And then ends up, the next scene we just cut immediately to a casino, and this is just, you packed all the good stuff from a James Bond movie into the first 12 minutes of this movie. It's awesome.
This scene does not need to be in the movie whatsoever. It appears to be just them trying to introduce the fact that the Xenia Onatopp is a bit of a psycho, played by Famke Janssen, about 5 years prior to X-Men. So, we got Jean Grey in here.
Oh, snap. I forgot Famke was in a Bond movie.
And she is a smoke show.
I didn't have her on my list of favorite Bond girls.
She's also a psycho.
But that black dress at the Baccarat table convinces me she needs to be there.
So we get to the hotel, and Xenia is there. Bond plays her in Baccarat. He beats her.
Bond ends up in the casino playing Baccarat with Onatopp, but he's unable to seduce her before she's led away from Bond by a horny Canadian general.
She calls him a biatch, or whatever that Russian word is that she keeps yelling at him whenever she's mad. It sounds like biatch.
The next time we meet her, she's at a casino, and it's a much, much, much more interesting scene. Of course, it's a casino, but it's a much more interesting scene between her and James than the really weird vacation-style meeting of them the first time. It really doesn't need to be in the movie, and it's far too long.
And we're looking at Pierce Brosnan here. He looks good in the tux. We've seen him do the ass-kicking stuff. Now we're seeing him do the Bond James Bond line and the shaken not stirred. He's good with the girls, and I'm all in on Pierce Brosnan as James Bond. He is rocking this. We get a hard cut from a nice funny little Bond quip to a hardcore naked Xenia beating up having combat sex with the Russian admiral. A little bit jarring if you're trying to watch this with your girlfriend, a little bit unexpected and comes out of nowhere.
So Xenia just kills this dude with her legs,
who she eventually kills in the most CrossFit way ever, crushing him with her thighs.
My favorite henchman is actually Xenia Onatopp.
Onatopp?
Yes, her name is Onatopp. That means sex stuff.
Such a weird character. She seems to be a bit sadistic.
And I was reminded of one of the quick scenes in The Living Daylights with Dalton, where they talk about an assassin who kills someone with her legs.
But Xenia kills a dude with her thighs, which is pretty awesome. In The Living Daylights, I believe, Moneypenny was talking to Bond about another Soviet operative, who would kill people with her thighs, and she was like, well, she's just your type. I think that was Living Daylights. Anyway, this is cool. I like it.
It's not the same person, and that is such a huge missed opportunity.
She enjoys killing people, it seems, but she's kind of an outlandish character. She is actually the honeypot for the general to get the ID card as well.
Bond follows up on her, and it turns out she is part of some crime syndicate, Janice, and tries to stop her from stealing an experimental Tiger helicopter that's apparently impervious to EMPs.
When Bond is investigating the boat, I love that he sees the dude coming up on him by looking in a brass piece of art or something like that, and you can see the reflection of the guy coming up on him from behind. I think that's awesome. And then Bond is sees that, knows there's a guy coming behind him, deflects the punch, and takes the guy out. I think that's a really cool touch.
So Bond is in one ship spying on another and gets caught and immediately responds with a towel snap straight to the face. Clearly someone has been to summer camp.
My favorite villain moment is actually when they steal the helicopter from this, I guess it's on board a ship.
So Xenia kills the French pilots. She steals a prototype French stealth helicopter.
That they come up with an elaborate plan to seduce, I think it's a general. They get his key card, they get behind the scenes. He's dead. And they pretty much walk in, kill a couple of pilots, and fly off with the helicopter.
Basically just gets stopped by the French ship's crew, watching the chopper get stolen in broad daylight.
And I love that she just flies off with it while everybody on the deck is just sitting there watching, waiting for it to do something cool, and it just flies away. I love that.
So we get to, we see this Russian, out in the tundra.
So we cut to Severnaya Station.
It's like a satellite communications station or something like that. And there's Alan Cumming, who you may know as Nightcrawler from X-Men 2, and from the Son of the Mask.
Boris Grishenko is just that guy, finding time to screw with his coworkers as well as bug the US government via dial-up modem.
We get Boris. I am invincible. I love Boris. He's great. Just as a fun character, and I'm super in with him.
I do love the scene where Boris is just calls all the American slugheads over and over again. This is where we meet Natasha and Boris.
So Alan Cumming plays Boris, and he's like this Russian hacker, and he's played opposite this girl. I think her name's Natalia, but she's like another hacker.
And Natalia Semyonova. She's played by Isabella Skorupko. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly.
We're also introduced to Natalia Semenova, who is using a very advanced voice control system with her 16 megabyte RAM computer with a 50-pound CRT monitor. I'm very impressed.
She's Polish, Swedish. She was a model and a singer before this, and she's good in this role. I like it.
And they're working on something stupid, but it's the most like 90s computer hacking sequence. It's great. It's so terrible.
Boris is a skinny Russian Nedry.
For those of you, and I assume that's everybody that's seen Jurassic Park, it's very reminiscent of like the hacking sequences with like Dennis Nedry and like Sam Jackson's character.
You didn't say the magic word.
He's even drawn himself as a computer character that gives riddles with answers like knockers.
And like when Alexis is, hacking the system, it's just like nothing they're doing makes any sense. They're just like wailing away at the keyboard. And
meanwhile, in non-Soviet Russia, we're seeing how the low-rent version of the movie Hackers is going, which also came out in 1995.
Like the icons are showing up with graphics and all. It's just very strange, but it's hilarious. It's like nobody making the movie knew how computers worked yet, and they figured audiences didn't really know how they worked yet either, keeping in mind this is 1995, and the internet was like a year old for most people.
This is also the first of many times we get to hear Boris' catchphrase, "Yes, I am invincible!"
The Goldeneye weapon's here and it gets stolen. That's all really important. But really what I love about this scene is just the insult of slugheads. It's just good. I'm going to start calling people slugheads.
But that helicopter lands, and the general that shot 006 is there, and also Onatop.
So the Tiger helicopter shows up. Ormov and Xenia enter. They are going to be here for a test fire of Goldeneye, but then as soon as they get the codes and turn the keys...
So this movie has two rather famous Bond girls, Natalia Simonova and Xenia Onatop. Xenia is kind of the ultimate femme fatale of Bond girls. She's absolutely ruthless and completely insane. And her whole shtick is kind of killing dudes with her thighs during sex. I do kind of wish they had made her a more well-rounded character, but I do think Famke Janssen absolutely owns this role.
I have to go with least favorite villain. I feel like Xena Onatop is another character we're introduced to who isn't just evil, but has blatant mental health issues.
The general gets the keys to some old satellite system, and Onatop pulls a Zoran and guns down the entire base.
She reminds me a lot of Max Zorin from A View to a Kill.
When Xenia murks everyone in that base, it looks like real blood, and that's like the first time I can think of that happening.
It's just very disturbing and unsettling for me.
Xenia just starts mowing down people with the AK, and I love Ormov looking at her like she's a complete psycho while she's doing this.
Like, I get it, you like to kill people and you get off on it, but there's a time and there's a place, and I think they went over the top. My least favorite part of this really great film.
The general sets off the missile, which amusingly was labeled CCCP, escaping from a giant EMP blast in their special helicopter. At the same time, the Brits are watching. My favorite line from M being, unlike the American government, we don't get our bad news from CNN.
They basically steal this satellite called the Goldeneye that appears to just, be like an EMP device.
So they'll actually bring me to my favorite gadget, which is the Goldeneye, which is EMP-like nuclear device that gets set off in the upper atmosphere to send out an EMP, essentially. So that's my favorite gadget.
It fires like a massive EMP into like an area, like presumably you could destabilize countries, militaries, whatever, or maybe focus it on a specific area, whatever. It's very dangerous apparently because this EMP also electrocutes people. I'm not sure if they know how EMPs work, but that's not what they do.
Fun note about that chopper. In this movie, in 1995, it didn't really come into service in real life until 2003. This was like a prototype. It was still being tinkered with and designed up until then, because Europe didn't really need a new fighter chopper due to the end of the Cold War.
Now, the biggest thing about the helicopter is it seems to be immune from EMP.
Each of them cost about $27.4 million now, plus whatever made up the magic technology that they use for blocking EMPs.
You see two jets kind of like bump into each other in midair, and they immediately explode after bouncing off of each other?
The EMP knocks out two jets headed toward the scene.
The Goldeneye goes off, it blows up a couple MiGs and Severnaya Station, and destroys any evidence that Ourumov or Xenia were there.
I will say that EMPs don't explode anything, they just burn out all circuits. They technically complete them and they burn them out.
Don't think that's how that works.
We get a description of EMP, which I think might be the third or fourth time in a Bond movie so far we've had somebody describe to us what electromagnetic pulse is and does.
And everyone's being like electrocuted, right? Like really crappy, like late 80s, even Return of the Jedi style. Electricity is like coursing all over them, and their like hand is stuck to the throttle, and they're going like, ah! And that's not how that works.
They can cause fires, but they don't explode things.
It would just shut off, and everything goes dead.
I did appreciate all the miniatures blowing up, though. That was really fun and really cool.
But very interesting, kind of a cool Blofeldian plot. You know, there's actually two of these satellites. We're gonna steal them both, and we're gonna become super rich somehow. They're like underpants gnomes. You know, step 1, underpants. Step 3, profit. What's step 2?
You know, that little cupboard she was in is starting to sound a lot more attractive now that the entire base is blowing up.
But Natalia escapes by hiding under the counter, not the air conditioning system. Very sneaky.
No one could have predicted the dog sled surviving.
Back at MI6, we get to meet a new Moneypenny.
Oh shit, this Moneypenny is awesome.
I like the new Moneypenny, I like their banter.
And I'll say, she's very age appropriate for Bond. The last one was super cute, but this one is like Bond's age and temperament.
As far as I can remember, James, you've never had me. This is the first Moneypenny who does not reciprocate Bond's lust.
And I like the new M.
All right, so it's briefing time. M gets called into the office, and there's a man there that we think, oh, is this a new actor playing M? But no, this is a different guy who insults the new M by talking about her as that cold-blooded numbers witch or something like that.
Favorite ally. In this movie, we're introduced to a brand new M, and she's a female.
And then she says, excuse me, and she's standing right behind him, and it's Dame Judi Dench being fantastic.
So this movie has a lot of great allies to choose from. You got the first appearance of Judi Dench's M.
What a good entrance for her.
And she's played by Dame Judi Dench.
Dame Judi Dench is awesome.
I mean, this is my favorite ally.
Judi Dench's best girl.
And then we get the scene where she's dressing Bond down.
Bond goes to meet with M just after the explosion to help, plan their reaction. But you can tell she's no replacement M.
From the first time we meet her, we kind of learn that she doesn't take any shit.
And she is great in this role. I know at the time a lot of people were like, well, it's weird for James Bond to be taking orders from a woman, but a lot of those people I think shut up once they saw Judi Dench performing this role. She is awesome at it. She doesn't take any of Bond's crap.
Bond is like, your predecessor kept scotch in the cabinet. And Dame Judi Dench is like, I prefer bourbon.
And there's that awesome scene where she calls Bond out.
And that's awesome to see in a female character in a James Bond movie.
She says to James Bond, I think you're a misogynistic dinosaur.
She calls him a misogynistic dinosaur.
A relic of the Cold War, whose boyish charms, though wasted on me, obviously appealed to the young woman I sent out to evaluate you.
Judi Dench is the best.
And right after that, she sits Bond down and she's like, you're a sexist, misogynist dinosaur, and basically a holdover from all the jackasses in the Cold War.
But the frosting on the cake is the line that she delivers, where she says something like, I think you're a sexist, misogynist dinosaur, a relic of the Cold War, whose boyish charms are lost on me.
And Bond has to take it. I love it.
I love that moment.
Picking her for this role as the new M and then having this monologue, there's no dialogue. It is Judi Dench just straight up talking shit to Bond.
Damn, M, just laying it on the line.
I love the line when M says, I have no compunction sending you to your death, but I won't do it on a whim. I like that. She's tough but fair, right? It's a very good portrayal of M, and very cool. With one line, you can say, like, look, I don't care if you live or die, but I'm also not going to waste this asset.
She ain't here to put up with your bullshit, Bond. She's here to get the job done. But she also respects that James Bond can do the job. So she sends him out on this mission with the explicit instructions to do his job and not resort to revenge.
She's also like, if you're afraid I won't send a man out to die, you're wrong. I just won't waste him, and I'll have your back.
I think that really establishes their relationship in a very cool way.
Seriously, she's great.
She gives him clear guidelines. This is what you're gonna do. This is what you're not gonna do, Bond. Do you hear me? It's fantastic.
I love her.
Certainly addresses a lot of the issues from all of the previous Bond films. It's just such a solid callback and kind of like an announcement of, things are going to be different, kind of, sort of.
And she is very, believable as a hardcore, foreign intelligence director.
I love this M. She's amazing. She's so good.
I mean, mwah, it's perfect. Thank you, M. Thank you.
We then go to a meeting of the Russian defense minister, where General Orlov, the guy who shot 006, shows up to give his report to the thing he stole. But they want him to stay on his job, but the minister's still a little suspicious. There's also a parade going on in Red Square. They just do that every day, all day, just parade around in Red Square. Oh, and the original Q is back.
So no gadget or weapon in particular, but this is the perfect time to bring up how much I love Q and how silly he's becoming.
He's getting up there in age, but it's still fun. He's super still into creating toys. I really like that he ran around a corner after setting off a grenade and put his hand over his ears.
My favorite gadget is actually probably going to be that cast missile. I thought that was pretty fun.
There's some bonker stuff going on in the background of the scene.
We get a walkthrough of Q Labs, which is great. There's just a lot of fun gags in there. The phone booth airbag and the cast that shoots a missile. It's hilarious. I love Q. I love this scene. It's awesome.
We have some weird telephone booth and some guy getting at a desk getting ejected out of there.
I mean, we've had little slapstick here and there before, but the stuff that's in the background is pretty hilarious, like the exploding desk and the inflating phone booth.
Now, Bond also gets a new car, a BMW Z3. Dude, it has Stinger missiles behind the headlights. First off, those things are $40,000 a piece.
I think him and Pierce play off each other really well, so it's kind of fun to have that naked gun or airplane type silliness to break things up.
Also, where's the exhaust system for that rocket launch going? There's a reason these things are in tubes. I know we get a BMW in the next two movies minimum, but I forgot if they get the chance to launch the rocket. Oh, and Class 4 grenades aren't really a thing. Bond goes to Russia to track down that chopper plus the girl.
So Bond meets his CIA contact in St. Petersburg, and I will say this is the first Bond movie that was filmed in Russia, because the Cold War had just ended, and the Soviet Union had just fallen, and they never showed any of the Bond movies in Russia for probably obvious reasons, and so this is the first time that one was ever filmed in St. Petersburg.
He gets off the plane into a very cold Russia, and not everyone is bears. So right now I'm always suspect.
Bond gets sent out on assignment to Russia and meets up with his contact there and tries to use some fancy code words about isn't the weather in August a dream or something like that, whatever it is.
Bond meets his contact, Jodan Baker, who is CIA agent Jack Wade. We've already seen Jodan Baker. He was the dumb American military guy from Living Daylights, but now he is a CIA agent, and he is going to help Bond meet Janice.
And the guy responds I ain't got time for your bullshit passwords. Let's just get in the car and go.
Not only is Whitaker back, but we have another Jimmy callback. I love it.
And we get to meet again Jodan Baker, who in this movie is playing CIA agent Jack Wade.
I like Jack Wade here. I think it's great. I love that he keeps calling James Bond Jimbo. I know that this is probably just the continuation of the James Bond movies, dogging on the Americans. M had that one line where she was unlike the Americans, we don't get our bad news from CNN. And I get that. I think that this is the continuation of that. But in being a dumb American myself, I like this guy.
Who I affectionately has been referring to as Hey Jimbo, because that's all he says.
And immediately I'm this is J.W. Peppa. Sheriff J.W. Peppa's been promoted. He's part of the CIA now. Turns out that's not the case. This is a new character with the CIA. He's not Felix Leiter. He's not J.W. Peppa. But in my heart, he's J.W. Peppa.
And we get to see his ass, because this movie has its own sense of humor. But it's a fun way to show tradecraft. They do a handshake of code words, and Bond knows about a rose on his ass. Apparently Muffy is written on it. Very amusing.
You also got Russian Hagrid. What's his name?
So Bond meets up with this guy Valentine.
That's right. You got Robbie Coltrane playing Valentin Zukovsky.
They get into the worst car ever, and Bond is like, I have to go see someone who will introduce me to Janice. And it turns out that Bond had shot the guy, Valentin Zukovsky. So that's going to be a really rough intro.
Who is, I guess he's got ties to the Russian mob, but he's sort of, he helps out Bond.
Who they think's going to be able to get him a lead on this Janus syndicate that's apparently orchestrating everything going on in this movie. Who's this Russian guy? And I got to be honest with you, as a young lad, I thought that this was Pushkin from Living Daylights. I thought this was the same character John Rhys Davies played. And it's not, but like it totally could be. I mean, the idea is that it's, someone high up in Russia with power, with goons. This could totally be Pushkin post-retirement from the military.
Bond meets up with Valentine, who is played by Hagrid. Yes, his real name is Robbie Coltrane, but he's always Hagrid to me.
I love the backstory with Bond and Valentin Zhukovsky. Their interactions are great. You really get the feeling that they're old enemies that are working together now. I love the banter back and forth between them. I love Zhukovsky trying to shoot guns into the cushions next to Bond. I love the line about who cares about a helicopter? I have 6. And Bond's like, 3, none that fly. And Zhukovsky's like, who's counting?
Hagrid is a problem with Bond because Bond shot Hagrid in the knee. As someone with knee problems, I might have shot Bond myself. Bond tells Valentine to give Bond up to Janice's bait, so they have a little deal going on.
Just a random fun fact, when Justin and I were watching, we were watching the scene where they're in a Russian nightclub and there's 3 women singing a really bad rendition of Stand By Your Man. And the girl looks super familiar and it took us a minute, but it's a very young Minnie Driver.
I love the cameo by future star actress Minnie Driver in the scene, singing a terrible rendition of Stand By Your Man.
It was kind of funny to me because she's British with a British accent, and we're used to hearing her with an American accent, and here she's singing with a Russian accent, an American song. So all of it put together just made me laugh.
This is actually one of her first movies that wasn't for TV. She went on to go play one of my favorite movies, Grosse Point Blank.
Hey, Minnie Driver is in this. She's the girl singing, Valentine's girlfriend. She's in it for 2 seconds, but hey, I recognize her.